Welcome to the Jada Edwards podcast. It's season 2, and I'm still sharing with you what God is sharing with me. Yvonne. Okay, not a no. I keep going to call you a no. It's Yvonne Barbee.
There it is.
There it is. Or a no, like I've always called you.
That works too.
We know you're married. How long have you been married, girl? Like 12 minutes?
Yes. A year and a month.
A year and a month. And how old are you? Tell our listeners, because you look amazing.
44.
44.
So what 21, but I can't lie.
You can't lie. And you look amazing anyway. You still look 21. All America's Next Top Model. They don't even know about you, girl.
Yeah.
For real. When we found that out, we gave you the blues. We were like, which episode? Okay, this is not really what we're talking about, but what has it been like in your 40s, established single mom, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I was married. What's that year been like?
It's been good.
Been good?
It's been good. It's fine. You know, I think as a single woman, you're always thinking, ooh, I want to get married. And it's like all this, I don't know what we think it is going to be. It's just regular.
It's regular. Just somebody else there.
Yes. And I've got 3 boys.
Yes.
I love them.
Yeah, 2 sons, but 3 boys.
Exactly.
You know the husbands count.
Exactly. A mess.
Yes.
So I just love it. I love being their mom. I love the boys. I love being the wife. The only thing I don't like is this whole thing about cooking. Like they got to eat every day.
Every day. And multiple times a day.
Listen.
Everybody stay hungry. Do you kind of low-key feel a little bitterness? This is how I feel. When I cook and it's a really good meal and I cook a lot and then there's none left. I'm like, wait a minute. We can't get no leftovers out of this. But like, well, this was good. Can I have thirds on?
Yes.
That's for tomorrow. No, every day.
But
My son is 9 and he wakes up in the morning saying, what are we having for breakfast? What's for dinner tonight? Tonight. Can we just get through the school day? See if the Lord brings us home safely.
Listen.
Girl, they love food. They love food. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're joining us on our podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Yes. Okay, so I was thinking, this whole series we've been talking about, I'm calling it The Best Story You've Never Heard. And so I just think there's so many amazing people that God has allowed me to know who have just mind-blowing stories, and yours is one of those. Let's see, I've known you for almost 15 years because it was when our church started.
Yes.
Because Kaysen, your son, is how old?
He's 13.
And he's a church baby. I call him a church baby because in the hotel, while we were doing setup, Kaysen would be like in a car seat, sitting on a chair.
Doing praise and worship by himself. Listen.
Yeah.
Over here.
And you're like, whose baby is this? That's Yvonne, baby. Oh, okay. And
I got to set up. Y'all watch.
You got to set up. Yes. And he kind of grew up with the church. So
I was pregnant when I first came.
You were?
I was pregnant. Yeah.
You were at Bible study. Yep. Do you remember when we had Bible study at Preston Meadow?
Yes, at the other church.
That was our first conversation. I remember what you had on. You had on like this red top and these
I come up to you and say something like
flare. Yes. And you were like, I didn't know you. I met your husband.
I didn't talk to you.
I was
like, I remember that.
She's so aggressive. Who's this?
The Lord has humbled me, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
And I was like, who is this tall, skinny girl with this little basketball in front of her? You were pregnant.
That was forever ago.
Isn't that crazy? Do you remember how, you might not remember this, but I used to have to keep up with the numbers for growth. I never forget when we maxed out that room for Bible study at 36. At 36 when we were like, God is doing big things. And so, yes, what an amazing time. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what brought you to the States. Like, that's a whole story in and of itself. Before we get into the one word that describes your life, give the people a quick little CV on.
I know, right? I'm like, how much time we got here?
Right.
What brought me to one? Okay, so I'm gonna back up just a little bit. So I am first generation Ghanaian, American. I mean, so my parents are from Ghana, West Africa, and so I lived there for a while when I was younger. Came down here, and like every African child, you have things that you have to be when you grow up.
Yes,
doctor.
Yeah,
lawyer, engineer, banker. That's it.
You can be anything you want to be out of these 4 things.
You can't say, I want to be an artist. Listen.
Like, nobody has time.
Whole disgrace to the whole family, right? So I was just like, okay, so I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be a doctor, right? So I picked one of the 4 reputable positions that I can have. And so came back here to the U.S., went to school, after school, residency. And then in residency, met a young man. And he was Ghanaian as well. And it was funny because in my Ghanaian community, because I was doing what I was supposed to do, I was considered a good girl. Yeah. Right. And he was considered a good guy. So naturally, we're supposed to get married. Yeah. That's what you do.
It's a fit, clearly.
And
he's going to be a doctor too.
Oh, well, he was going to be a banker.
A banker.
So
okay.
we're good.
Still an acceptable option.
We were okay.
Okay.
And so he said, let's get married. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Right. So came back here, got married because I was in Texas initially, moved to Florida for residency, came back here, got married. And shortly after that, did not go well. And so during that time, I was depressed. I was depressed. And I say this now, friends and community is huge because I was depressed to the point of suicidal.
Yeah.
And one of my girlfriends, who's still a good girlfriend now, was like, Yvonne, you need to see somebody for counseling. And I was like, I got Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't need no counselor.
Yeah, Jesus was there. He's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time. So I said to her, okay, I guess I'll go see whoever you want me to go see. And she was like, I know this guy. He kind of talked to me when I was going through a tough relationship. And I was like, fine, I'll go see him. And she was like, okay, let me call him. So she calls this guy and she was like, okay, let me talk to him. He said that at that time I lived in Euless with my sister because I'd left my marital home to go move in with my sister. And he said, you should go talk to him. But he said he was in Allen. And so he had somebody down in Euless because it was far drive. And I was like, listen, first of all, I don't want to see nobody.
Right.
You say he's good. I guess I'll go see him, but I'm not seeing nobody else.
Right.
And she's like, okay, let me talk to him. So she called back and she's like, okay, he'll talk to you, but you got to go to Allen. Like, all right, fine. So I roll over to Allen at Market Street.
The office.
The office to meet with Pastor Conway. And
the
I was
therapist.
just like, okay. We were small. He was a therapist, the pastor, the cleanup crew, all the things. Okay,
like, why is your office in this Market Street cafe?
It worked,
and he set up.
Provided.
He would set up like all day. I know they were like, sir,
people knew him.
Was rent.
So we get our pizza from Market Street, sit in a little cafe area.
There you go, got food
and chit chat. And he said we talked a little bit about what was going on, and he said, "Whew, all right." So clearly, he said one of two things. He said, you have to come to our church if you want me to counsel you, because I think it'd be good so that you have both things. And I said, I live in Euless. I don't know your church. I'm not trying to come all the way over here and come to church.
Right.
Like, I'll do what I can. And he was like, he just, I guess, took mercy on me. He's like, okay, fine. You can come, but I want you to come to this one event, right? Because you're just depressed. You're in the house. You just need to come out and be with people. So I said, okay, fine. And the event was the Valentine's. It was Valentine's weekend.
Oh, yeah.
It was Valentine's Day event. And it was a couples and singles combined thing that time. And I came and it was so much fun. It was a family feel. Yes. It was loving. I just remember thinking, I just want to be part of this. I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
I just want to be part of it.
But I like it.
But I like it. It was a Saturday. So the next day on Sunday, I came to church and I was like, all right, come check this thing out. Came to church, sat in the back, quiet. And that was the day that Q proposed to.
Yes. Oh my gosh. During service.
I remember that. I'm sitting here like, I love, and I'm all crying, and I'm like, I'm going through a divorce. It was just a mess. And I was like, you know what, Lord, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever's going on here, I want to be part of it. And I've been here since.
Ever since. You have stuck with it. Listen, I'm like, Yvonne has been in the kitchen, and she's still eating at the restaurant. That's ride or die, girl. And we've had some good fights. We've had some good disagreements. Yes. But, man, what a privilege. What a joy. Yeah, yeah. So, okay. So that's Yvonne. Super amazing, beautiful, tall, skinny, and a physician. Take that. So if you could describe your life in one word, what would that word be?
So this was a tough question for me. I think of my life in two parts.
Okay, so, I'll give you 2 words.
Okay, thank you. Because I was like, how do I do this?
There's grace.
You know how people say there are like 2 days that you have to remember? You remember your birthday and then you remember the date you were saved. For me, there were 3 dates. Birthday, date I was saved, but then the third one is the date that I gave my life to Christ. Because that was a different date. I got saved at 10.
Yeah.
And lived ratchet and raggedy.
It wasn't surrender.
Listen. Yeah. Till I was about 30. Right around that time, God takes you through some stuff to get you back to Him. Yeah, and that was the time around that time of the divorce that I was like, okay, Lord, I surrender. And I remember I was in my apartment, pregnant, crying, snot nose, crying, belly on the side, literally laying on the carpet, and I said to the Lord, I'm done. I don't know what you're gonna do, but I know you're not gonna leave me and my unborn child on the streets, because it was a lot. And I said, I'm done.
Let me back up 2 things. What do you say your 2 words are?
So the first one is the first part of my life when I wasn't living, right? Was survivor.
And then phase 2 is what?
Phase 2 is pivot.
Ooh, I like both of those. Okay, but hold on. I need a backstory question because some things I'm like, I feel like there was something. Was there something going on with the divorce? Was it affecting resident status, green card? Was it something going on? Did I make that up? Or did he leave? Did he go back? Or did he stay here?
He left to go decompress
Do
or
his thing.
or whatever it was. Yes.
Okay, because I think when I met you, I was like, well, where is he? You like, I was like, what? He was just out of the picture. So it wasn't just divorce. It was like instantly single mom. I feel like I'm on my own.
It was more than that. It was because I was divorced. I was living on my own. I was poor because I had just left my job, had no money, and had no health insurance. And so I had Kaysen on Medicaid.
Oh my God.
And so it was all the things and looking for a job and couldn't find a job. And I was just like, Lord. So in that moment, I was just like, I know.
Yeah.
Like I literally, and the story, I love the Lord. I just need to say that because the story of how he brought me through that, listen, all day, I can shout from the rooftops of how good he is because as I was laying there, I had a certain amount in my account and it could last me a certain amount of time. And I was like, okay, Lord, I don't know what you're going to do, but I ain't even going to worry about this anymore. And so in that moment, like around that same time, I got a call from a job that I had interviewed for months ago, right? At that time, I wasn't looking pregnant. By this point, I was all the way pregnant. You can't hide it behind a suit no more. Yeah. And so I said, he called and he's like, hey, I'd like to offer you that job. And I was like, okay, just to be honest, I was pregnant when I interviewed. I didn't tell you. I'm super pregnant now. I should be delivering in the next month. Are you still cool with that? And he said, yeah, that's fine. Just come do 3 shifts, right? And then after that.
What? Yeah, we'll hire you and you're about to give birth.
We'll hire you and give you maternity leave afterwards. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, we just needed you to cover a couple of shifts. I was like, all right, cool. Bet. Got it. And then I had that year done a lot of stuff with the IRS that was like I went to a bad tax preparatory CPA. And so it was done incorrectly. Found out it was done incorrectly. So I was like, oh, there's like $200 come to my name. Listen, Jesus, I want my $200.
Right.
So I put all of that in and I kept checking with the IRS, kept checking. You know, it's not a week thing. Like months later, I'm still trying to get my $200. And I got a letter or a call or something that said, okay, you know, Yvonne, your $2,000 is going to be there. And I was like, I'm sorry, 200 or 2,000? She's like, no, let me check. No, it's 2,000. And so it was $2,000 plus that little bit of those 3 shifts took me all the way through my maternity leave to be able to have enough money just to be able to get to my first paycheck.
Oh my God.
And so when I tell you about Jesus,
listen,
and how he can do it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I ain't got words, so.
Okay. So tell me why you would describe phase 1 as survivor. What were those years like?
So that first half of my year, like I'm the adult in the family. I'm African.
Yeah.
We have this kind of higher standard, not to say, but it's like, you have to do this. You have to do this. You're the adults in the family. There are no boys. So I was kind of the guy, the male,
the responsible one.
Responsible one. I took care of my whole family, mother, you know, everybody, cousins and them, everybody. And you're the doctor?
Oh, you got money. Send some money to your cousin over.
Listen,
who you telling?
I just got our residency.
I don't have no money. I don't know money. I need y'all to give me some money.
Okay. So I have always had the survivor mentality. Like I knew I had my checklist. Okay, you do this, go to school, do that, do this. So I've always been the one in charge of my life. So it was never a dependency on God. It was always a survival mentality to the point where Destiny's Child had a concert.
Not when they were singing Survivor.
Yes, they were singing Survivor. So my girlfriends and I went to a concert and we all had t-shirts. One of them was Say My Name.
Been through.
Survivor. I was Survivor. My other girlfriend's Bootylicious. We won't name which one that was. I mean, listen, to the point that that's what my identity was, that I can survive on my own without Christ. So that was that first phase. But then when everything broke down and all my plans didn't work and I was no longer perfect. I was like, okay, Lord, I give up. And when I laid on that floor, I was like, I'm done. Okay, what do you want me to do? How should I pivot?
Right.
And from there, I kept just hearing and seeking and trying to figure out where he wanted me to go. Okay, that's not the route. Pivot. You know, what do you want me to do? I'm pivoting. How do you want me to go? Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's why I have 2 phases.
What do you think, or do you remember feeling? Because sometimes you can have that that moment where you're like, okay, God, I surrender. I know you're calling me to pivot, but the high of the moment can wear down after you're having to live it out day to day. So what was that tension like? Because you're a very driven person. Your personality is very directional, not to mention not coming from a lineage that's not based in America. People from outside this country always have more hustle, more grind, you know. And so, and single mom, like still practically needing to survive, but not wearing that mentality. What was that shift like? How did you feel like God began to make that real shift in you after that decision was made? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, what did that look like? Was it friends? Was it your involvement in ministry? Was it your time your time in scripture? Was it like, how were you growing differently once you decided to make that pivot?
I think I'm still growing, right?
So y'all,
like for real. But I think as I look back, it wasn't easy because that's all I've done my whole life. Now you're telling me to follow you.
Yeah.
What does that mean, Lord? And so it was always this idea of, okay, whatever situation I'm in, am I really truly trying to do this on my own, Yvonne, or am I really surrendering? So it was a constant everyday asking yourself that question. And I still messed up a whole bunch of times and still do it now because I'm like, I got this. I'm a survivor. I can do it. But then I'm like, do you got this? Do you need to have this? Right. Are you even doing it right? Are you checking in? Is that what you're supposed to be doing? All the things. And so it's an everyday. Trying to figure it out.
I want to ask you a little bit about forgiveness. I don't know that I know we have, but I don't know if we've talked specifically about this because it was already part of your story when I met you. What was that process like, having to forgive your ex-husband? Like, because you couldn't even just be like, I'm out. Like, you have a reminder. And
he's a cute reminder.
You know. But it hasn't always been roses. That relationship hasn't been like, oh, and we just worked it out and now we are co-parenting. It's not that ideal dream of what happens when. So that's been a lot of highs and lows where you had to deal with feel abandoned, betrayed, alone again and again. Like, sometimes I think when you are in those situations, it feels like it's reopening this wound. And so as soon as you think you're past it, something else happened. My son turns 5, then he turns 10. You're like, you know what, Joker? I keep getting reminded of why I don't like you. So what was that forgiveness? What's that journey been like for you? Because I think a lot of people wrestle with that, you know, single moms, or whether you've been married or not, but you may have been hurt by a parent, you know, or a sibling, or betrayed by a friend. I just think
all the above.
It's such a theme in our life, like releasing people and, you know, finding that peace with God, and not in the I ran to the altar because the song moved my heart kind of way, but like the everyday, I pray well for this person and I just don't know, you know. So what was that like for you?
So a couple of things. So there was a lot of hurt. A lot of pain, a lot of anger. But first of all, shout out to counseling. So counseling, after going with Pastor Conway, I still went through counseling some more. I still have my counselor on speed dial. Listen, if I need you, like, hey girl. So just through counseling, what I recognized was a few things. I was at fault in that situation.
Ooh. Okay. And how in the world do you come to that place?
Oh, it took forever.
Because forgiveness is really like, you know what, Lord, they trifling, but I'm holy, so I'm going to let them go.
Tell you like, things. Let me check it off.
And the Lord's like, no, let me tell you that you trifling.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Did that feel like, for real, God? Did that like hit you like a ton of bricks that you were at fault?
Oh, me and Jesus, we cool like that. I talk to him like that. Like I'm like, really, Jesus? Like that?
That's how we're going to do it.
Okay. But yeah, it was, I needed to come to that realization and then just work on me, right?
Yeah.
And then in that, working on me, I recognized, first of all, because I had this idea of perfection in my head. And so for me, through counseling, I recognized that I wasn't even mad at him for all the things that went down. What I was mad at was that he messed up the plan and my perfection.
Yeah.
And what I had built.
Right.
And I was like, that is so jacked, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Like that you have so much to work on yourself that you need to recognize what your issues are, and then recognize that everybody's got their own issues. And so he's struggling with his, pray for him.
Yeah.
That he can get through his, and it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about his salvation and his relationship with the Lord. And you're working on yours. Pray that he works on his and whatever that looks like. But it's not about you, girl.
Yeah.
And that's when I was able to let go.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so powerful. And it's so insightful to say, because I think we want to say that, you know, our hearts are broken when we sin, but, or when we disappoint God. But really our hearts are broken when our plans don't come to fruition. And that's that's such a big point of awareness to say, I mean, I'm hurt and that really wasn't cool, but I'm really irritated that you messed up my whole, I had a 5, 10, 20 year. This is where we're supposed to be at age 4. Yeah.
All my life I've been working on this.
Absolutely.
I'm messed it up.
Absolutely. That's
I'm
the
no
whole
longer
thing.
Perfect. What?
Yeah. So how do you think that shifted? How old was Kason? Do you remember when you felt like, okay, I can really release your dad? Or
I started the process before he was born, because I remember thinking, I do not want to bring this child into this world and have this anger towards his father. I don't want him to feel that and see that. So it started before. Of course, it was a daily process, and I kept, going and going. And there was, like you said, moments where I was like, oh, this man right here, Joker, as we say, right? But in the midst of it, I still continually was like, okay, Yvonne, it's still not about you.
Yeah.
So, learn to forgive. So.
Do you feel like now that you had spent all these years as a single woman, and then a single mother in addition, do you feel like there was also not just the releasing of him and where he may have failed, even as you learned about your own failures, your own shortcomings, do you feel like there's also a releasing of this idea that married is better, especially with a child?
Yeah.
Like, did that process happen together, or do you feel like I had to deal with the forgiveness first and then start to wrestle with, but am I okay if I never get married?
I had to deal with forgiveness first.
Yeah.
I need one thing at a time.
Right.
It was a lot.
Hold on, Lord. Right.
Let me deal with that first. And then it got to the point of, okay, I feel like that's good. Now, do I want to get married again? Let's start there. Do I want to go through this again? Do I want to be vulnerable again? Because you still got to be vulnerable, right? And is this something I want? And then when I recognized that it was still something I want, I was like, all right, cool.
I remember that phone call. Okay.
Let's do this right.
Yes. Okay. This is the Real and Raw podcast. So we're going to tell the whole truth, because some single women need to hear this. Because I fussed you real good one day. I was so
Ladies,
mad.
Don't call Jada.
I was so mad because I love you so much.
Yeah.
And I felt like the desire, once you came to grips with like, okay, tough boss Yvonne is like, yeah, okay, I want to be married. That I didn't like the way you were making some decisions.
Yeah.
And that don't mean I was right. I just had an opinion about it. And so what I want to hear, like, a couple of things. One, the role that community played as you started trying to navigate that, even when community was not saying what you wanted. And number two, how you were able to manage the tension of wanting something without letting it lower your standard. Like community, and then how you were able to say, I want to be honest about what I want, but I also don't want to give in to what I want. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And
you can say what you want to say. You can say you didn't like me. It don't bother me.
It was tough. Very difficult.
Yes. I was mean. I wasn't mean because that speaks to intent. I said harsh words.
You did.
And I had to call you back. I was like, I'm sorry, but you know I love you. I was like, it's okay. I was like, I know I was harsh, but you know where it's coming from. But that's still what I felt. I was like, oh, I need to call.
And that was
you.
the biggest thing. I knew where it was coming from. And going back to this idea of community, because I had other women in my circle of friends that were like, I don't know, you're not doing it right. Let's talk through this, all of that. And I appreciated all of that in the midst of it. In retrospect, I appreciate all that. In the midst of it, I was, still strong-willed. And I was like, that's what I want. I don't know what But then I remembered that when I decided that I wanted to do this all over again, I put into place some people that had absolute ability to speak into my life. So if they said no, then I had to really pause. Because the first time I did it, one of my girlfriends, and the one that is still a girlfriend of mine right now, was like, I don't know about him. And I was like, you don't love me. You don't understand. I love him. All this foolishness.
The Lord's
And she
going to
was
work
like,
it out.
exactly.
I prayed about it. I feel good about it.
He can please me. Foolishness. So I'm like, oh my God.
Because y'all both broke.
Okay.
That's why.
And so I didn't listen. I didn't heed good counsel at the time. And I refused to do that this time around. No matter how long it took or what we needed to go through or what that process looked like, it was going to be done right or it wasn't going to be done at all. Because I was not going to do this again the wrong way, not honoring God, not honoring my covering, because I chose to put that covering there, which was you and Conway. And then I also did not want to do that to my child.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a whole nother,
we're not doing this. He didn't meet Case until about a year before we got married. And we've been dating for 4 years.
Yeah.
He was like, am I going to meet him? Not yet. No, I need to make sure we're good.
Yeah. And that was hard. But I do remember when you made a decision to say, I really want this, but I'm willing to not do this if it's going to go. I don't want this to go badly. Yeah. And that's a hard place to come to. And I think on the other side now, a year into marriage, at 44, and still looking amazing, I have to say that every time, to know that had this season of marriage never come, that there's still joy. There's still contentment. Like this wasn't the thing I needed. Yeah. Do you remember the moment where I remember this moment. So I'm going to ask you, do you remember that moment where God flipped something in you where you're like, oh, I don't need this. I just really want it. I remember for kids, both of my beautiful ones are adopted. And I remember like, oh, I want to have kids. And the Lord was like, you want pregnancy photos. Do you really want kids? And I was like, oh, I feel like I just got attacked. Because you just want the stuff. And then I was like, oh, do I? And then he started showing me all of these people that I was able to mother and influence and all these women whose lives I get to pour into. And he was like, that's really what you want. And I was like, huh. And I remember wrestling, wanting kids so bad. And we kind of, I don't want to say forgot. We just were playing the church. I tell Joe all the time, like, you're my second-born, first-born in the church, So, because he'd be like, where's all my pictures? First 7 years, bro, y'all went on the scene. We couldn't have done it. So, but true. I remember, we couldn't have, but I remember God bringing certain women to my mind. I had some very specific experiences during a very couple of weeks, a very specific time in my life where God was showing me, this is what your heart wants to mother, to influence. And it was bittersweet for me because I remember feeling glad that God knew what my heart really wanted and that I had it, but also feeling sad because I was like, is this a setup? You're trying to get me ready for you saying no, we're never gonna have kids, right? I was like, ooh. So yes, it was bittersweet, but it was such a pivotal moment for me. It was a few months after that we got the call for Joe and all this stuff. So
he looked just like you,
girl. That's my baby.
That's Jesus.
That's my baby. He's not as neat as me. Jesus, we working on that. But he is much more compassionate than me. So praise the Lord. But do you remember a moment like that where it was like, oh, I think may not be what I want, but I think I'll be really good if this never happens.
So I had it initially before we met, but it was a false. You know what I'm saying?
It was like super spiritual.
Because I knew I was supposed to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, Jesus, if it don't happen, I'll be all right. And then I'm like, but you're going to make heaven, right? Okay. Right. Just want to make sure we good. And so it took a minute. It really did take a minute. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, if it doesn't happen, cool. I still wanted it, but I'm like, okay, but you're God. And so you know what's best. So if it doesn't happen, I'll be a little bummed, but I'll be all right. Yeah. Because I know you got me. Right. Yeah. And so that's essentially all I need. Right. And so it was during the relationship, at the beginning of the relationship, I was like, oh my gosh, is this it? Like butterflies and all that stuff. And then kind of during all the ups and downs of it all, I was like, you know what, Lord, I don't know.
I was like, no, never.
I was like, and then I
was at the wedding. See the Lord, you worked it.
Spoke
in the wedding.
Listen. But in the middle of that, the Lord was like, do you really want him? Or are you okay if this does not work out? Oof. And that's when. Yeah. In the middle of the relationship.
There's a moment.
Like, I was like, okay, Lord, if it don't work out, it doesn't work out. But I am not going to go above authority. I'm not going to go do what I have done in the past because I want to. I know I'm a grown woman. Yeah. And I can do whatever I want, but that's not honoring to you. Yeah. And so if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And I'm okay with that.
Ooh, that's a word. That's a word, girl. I mean, so many people need that. Single women need it. when their hearts are wanting marriage. But some of us just have dreams for a business and career and all these other things. And God is like, not now. Or for some reason, it's not happening. And man, we just have to believe that God is a dream giver. Like there's probably some other dream that we're ignoring because we want this other thing so badly. So I think that's going to be a good encouragement. Okay.
And if he gave it to you, he's going to make it work out.
He's going to make
at
it
the
work.
end. It doesn't matter. So just chill.
You ain't got to force it.
It'll be fine.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Okay. Last question. How is God surprising you these days? Besides having to cook dinner all the time.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday is only when I cook. The other days I'm like, y'all fend for yourself. Weekends is him. So surprising me. I think so. The Lord and I have this relationship where we just be like, I'll be like, yo, just kind of that's how we talk.
Yeah, keep it real.
Right. So he's always showing me different things or telling me stuff, and I'm just like, So I think he in this moment is giving me something that he's placed on my heart, I think. And I don't want to say yes. So I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, the Lord told me I'm not going to say that on him. But I feel like it's a direction that I need to go into. So he's surprising me in teaching me humility in it. Because again, I've been the survivor. I got this. I can do it. And it's same kind of story. He's like, I put this in your heart. It's not happening now. I need you to be patient with it. And I need you to, and this theme has been running throughout for the past 3 weeks. I need you to not do it alone. Because anything that I put in you, I'm bringing people alongside you to make that happen. And so that's kind of where I'm like, okay, Lord, I thought, I thought I could do it, and it's a done deal because you've done it. But I'm like, I'm still surprised in the fact that he's like, no, not now. Let's wait. I need you to do this. I need to work these things out in you before it happens. And so that's what I'm learning.
That's so good. I'm not going to tell all your business because I'm going to let you tell it. But I think it's interesting. Many of us are driven by whatever our goals are, right? Overcoming poverty or doing what our parents say or whatever we think is success. And you have done well as a medical professional. And I always joke because I'm like, when do you work? I'm like 4 days a month. I need your life. Except I didn't want to go to medical school in 28 years of never mind. You just go ahead and do it. But, that's something that a lot of people attain to, that level of financial success with all this freedom. And I think for a long time that those were just innate goals for you, whether it was family or survival or whatever. And so now to hear these things on your heart that you share with me, this pivot to want to pour into people and give financial guidance for families and people who would not have it, partly from experience, but also knowing that's not going to yield necessarily the same lifestyle, depending on what God calls you to do with that, And so I just think there's weight in God saying, I'm going to let you do your thing for a while, but then I might give you something that's greater and deeper and more profound. And it may change your bank account. It may change your lifestyle, but it's going to fill your soul,
Yes.
I think it's such a big thing to be able to walk away from what, and I don't know what's going to happen now or how God's going to work it out, but to be willing to say, that ain't it. Like there's still a thing in my soul that God is calling me to.
And it's funny because I went into medicine with thinking that, so the whole idea was this idea of being able to help people, because when I went into backstory, when I was younger, we were pretty poor, right? And so I got sick, and I remember telling my mom at the time, hey, I need to go see the doctor. And she was like, we ain't got no insurance. We can't go see no doctor. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because I had just come back from Ghana. And Ghana, we were rich because we brought the dollars there, and so we had the affluence for exchanging the dollar to the cedi. And so when we got here, we were like for real poor. So like the money doesn't go the same way.
Like, what? Yeah.
And so I remember saying to my mom at the time, when I grow up, I'm going to open up a clinic that's going to take care of patients, that blah, 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 all this stuff. So I was like, I was gung-ho. I was like, why do we have such a rich country and such poverty? With poverty, you can't get good health care. That makes no earthly sense. I went into ER because you don't have to care about, who's getting paid, are the lights on. I don't care. I see my patient. Somebody's figuring out if those lights are getting on. I don't care. I'm taking care of the patient, insured, not insured. That's not my focus is the patient. And I remember in residency, I did it in Miami Beach. Okay. So y'all know the clientele was a little different. So they roll up in there in their Porsche and whatnot. Celebrity, we saw celebrities, all these things, and they would say, you know, oh, you need to go see that patient in room 5 because they're the founder or they are so and so. And I remember thinking, I'm over here seeing that little old lady who is, you know, poor. I'm going to finish seeing her. I don't care about this. Not that I don't care, but I'm like, I'm not going to go out of my way to go
show
take
favor for no reason,
exactly,
just no money. Yeah.
Because they don't have any money. And so that was kind of my heart in doing it, because it was this idea of poverty. You need to get good healthcare no matter what your status is, financial status is. And so in going back, recognizing that really it was the financial piece.
That was always in your heart.
That was always in my heart.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily medicine per se.
Yeah.
Medicine's
it was just a
thing.
vehicle to provide that need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now I'm just like, okay, Lord, how do we deal with the finances? Let's get to the root of it. To be able to help. So I'm excited. I don't know where we're going.
I know. That's the best part. When Jesus take the wheel, and I'm gonna close my eyes. I always had that phrase. Jesus take the wheel. I'm looking over here. We're gonna have to do part 2 because I'm excited about what God may be doing in the next season. Yeah. Thanks for being with us, Yvonne.
Thanks, Jada. This was fun.
Love you, girl.
Love you too. Yay.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, make sure leave a comment, leave a review, share, subscribe, all the things, and we'll catch you next time.